Okay, so this is workout level 1D. I've included the functional warm-up in with this one because I just want to add to something I've done before. So particularly the first move, I just want to add a couple of elements to it, which you'll see here when the video starts, which it should do in just a moment. Here we go. So the front line drive, which is the first exercise I do in the functional warm-up here, you might see is slightly different to the others. So if you have a look at the shoulder here, so on my left shoulder there's like an internal rotation, and then I retract back as my arm comes forward off the other side. So you can see there's a lot of shoulder involved in here. And so this also causes, if you look at my right shoulder, as I make that internal rotation, it just dips down. So I get some lateral flexion on that side. So this is just bringing this exercise forward a little bit because this really starts connecting the upper and lower body together, and we get good functional gait here. So I thought that I'd bring that forward because there's a lot going on in these functional warm-ups, and I'm in danger of overcomplicating things if I try and get them all in one video. So if you feel fairly comfortable with your alignment and doing this exercise how it was done in the other videos, this is what you can move it on to, and you should start really feeling so the eccentric load on the hip flexors, on the core, particularly at the front of the core there as you drive forward. So we're really trying to create that kind of loaded stretching feeling that I've talked about in other videos. The other functional warm-up exercises remain roughly the same here, so we can have a little bit of a music in this interlude. So starting off with the 3 static postural exercises for this workout, we're going to start with the plank. As always, I like to do it with a stick. If you've got a partner, you can do this, otherwise it's a little bit tricky to do this. It does take a little bit of practice to get that down with a stick. As you can see there, squeezing the shoulder blades together, big deep breath through the chest, and then just try and flatten out so that stick's lying flat on the back. You notice here I go into a full plank position here. Basically horizontal. I think things could be a little bit flatter there, particularly the butt could be down a little bit further, but not too bad. But the stick's lying very flat on my back. And as soon as I start to lose it, as soon as I start to lose my connection with the lower back there, I drop to the knees. So I'm not doing this for time or some sort of ego thing. It's all for quality. So I want to get that spine as neutral as possible, and I'm going to hold it only until when I can hold it perfectly, or as close to perfect as I can. Okay, next one, hip flexor integrated stretch. So yes, it's very much the same process. So the shoulder blades squeeze back, nice big deep breath through my chest, raise the rib cage, and then posterior tilt the pelvis to flatten out the back to make it nice and neutral. Then on that front foot there, that's kind of pulling back. Once I get the stretchy kind of loading, eccentric load on my hip flexors. So if you look here from front on, I do a little bit of a muck up here at the start, so you'll have to bear with me for a second. But you can see there, as I'm trying to line myself up though, before I make this point, I look pretty lopsided, but you'll see once I start correcting the posture, so I squeeze the shoulder blades back, take a big deep breath, I straighten up quite a bit. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, obviously, because there's one knee on the ground and there's one leg forward, but it straightens up significantly. But as soon as I do that posterior tilt, I'll get the stretch there on that left leg in the hip flexor kind of area, and once I've got that, I'm pulling back on that front foot. My front foot's not moving anywhere, but it's like a feeling of sliding it back, and that should engage the glutes as well as load the hip flexors at the same time. So I want to build that relationship. Okay, the final static postural exercise here is the standing bridge. So it's an innocuous looking exercise, this one. Very much follows that functional warm-up exercise where you're sticking your butt out and reaching forward. But so what I'm trying to get here is trying to find a neutral spine as I bend. So as I'm bending forward, butt sticks back, knees don't go forward, but there's a slight bend. And then I'm anterior tilting as I go down. So obviously, generally when you're correcting your posture standing, we want a posterior tilt when we're very upright, standing postural position. But as you go down, we need to initiate a bit of anterior tilt, and that's what that exercise is all about. Should feel it in your glutes if you're doing it well, but you might not feel it there for a while. It takes some work, that one. Okay, right. First exercise here is side-stepping weight drop. So we're going to go out to the sides. It's a lateral exercise, and then you're just dropping the weight down by your foot. If you notice, I'm not just dropping the weight, I'm actually rotating my shoulders here. So again, it's that good postural position. And much like that standing bridge, as I go down here, I'm hinging at the hips and I'm anterior tilting on the way down so that my spine is nice and neutral as I'm dropping that weight. And I'm not just dropping it with the arm. If you have a look from side on here, it's really the upper torso that's pulling it up, and then the arm just follows. Also, looking at from side on here, you'll notice that my knees never really go forward that much. Obviously, they do on the back leg there, but most of the weight is on the front leg, on the right leg as I go there, and that knee shouldn't come forward too much. You should be absorbing the load with your glutes and not your quads and your knee joint. I go straight into some wood chops, so you can do this static to begin with, just going from one side, and if you want to make it a little bit tougher, you add a little side step in there. So we're letting the weight kind of do the work. So there should be a real flow to this exercise. You're not really lifting the weight, you're just letting the load on the glutes and the upper torso, so that full integrated movement. That's where the power comes from to get the weight swinging, and then you really just follow the weight. Quite a tough exercise, that one, particularly when you sidestep it. All right, which one's up next? I don't know if I can remember. Here we go. All right, so I think this is the eccentric loading exercise. Again, it's very much like the standing bridge, but then we're putting a little bit of extra pressure on with the weights. So you really should feel this in the butt and hamstrings, but particularly in this position. So I'm back on my heels here, and then so just straighten my legs slightly and just tip forward towards the balls of my feet. Once I'm on the balls of my feet, I should feel it more in the calves and lower hamstrings. So I'm back again on my heels here, feeling it more in the butt. You've got to have a good neutral spine to feel this. Knees again not forward, and then I'm putting the weight more forward onto the balls of my feet, getting it more again in the hamstrings and lower calf. Great little exercise to prime that back line of muscle and fascia there, glutes, hamstrings, and calves. Okay, right, so this exercise is going to try and promote a good thoracic rotation. So we get that weight swinging, and then we pull it across the body and then stop once we hit the shoulders, just like that. And you notice there's a little bit of hip movement, that's inevitable, but most of the movement is in that upper torso. You see there's a real big thoracic rotation as I pull that weight across. And so you shouldn't feel this in the arms. You probably will the first few times you do it. Again, it's practice, practice, practice. We're really doing this to promote thoracic rotation. I've got quite a heavy weight here. I think I've probably got about 7 kilos. But to begin with, I really want you to keep this very light. So 1 or 2 kilos, because the rotation of the upper body done badly is not so good for your lower back. And so that's why I really want you to focus on light weights to begin with. Get the movement down. When you feel like you're comfortable with the movement, and you can do it nice and safely, then you move up with the weights. It's really not an ego thing, this kind of working out. I'm really just trying to get you to move better. And a nice, good-looking body in the mirror comes later on. That's a bonus. Moving better is the ultimate goal. Right, next we're going to kind of wood chop down and squat at the same time. As you can see from that second rep, it's actually harder than it looks there. So I've got about 5 kilos there on the wood chop. And the idea is to keep the alignment. So as I chop down here, you'll see that my hips probably want to just come out to the left to counterbalance it, but I'm trying to fight to keep them nice and straight. Bit tricky for me, this one, because the mirror's behind me. I'm having to face the camera, but you do this in a mirror. I think I did it not too bad. You can see this actually looks a little bit better on this side. I think the other side looked a little bit more wobbly, but this will definitely promote some kinks in your hips and your knees if you don't hold a good postural position while doing this one. I was actually pretty tired when doing this workout. I'd done a big workout the day before, so I'm taking a little bit too much time in between reps, aren't I? Okay, so the next one, we're going to lift the plate from the squat up above a head. So up right above the head, and then if you see that there will be a temptation to anterior tilt your pelvis, so we need to anterior tilt there, but up there we need to posterior tilt. There, you can see me posterior tilting as I brought it back there. It's quite a tricky exercise, this one, to balance on your toes and do it. So right up there, that stretches that front line of muscle and fascia, loads it, and then you bring it down. So it's actually kind of like a sit-up, but you're actually loading the rectus abdominis here beforehand, and it'll be a much better way of exercising your abs, because we generally are constantly shortening our abs while doing sit-ups. So while you might get a good six-pack, it isn't very good for function. So this one, we can get the six-pack here by lengthening the abs. So we're lengthening them there and then shortening them there. So we're actually lengthening and shortening the way that they should operate. So we can get a nice six-pack while being functional at the same time. All right. Next one. This is a standing elbow to knee. So you can do this and not touch down like I am there. I think I attempt to try not to here, but I don't succeed. But good postural position the whole way. You should feel this mainly at the core and the for this side, the right glute. But easy exercise you can do pretty much anywhere, but again, looking in the mirror is good. But this one's a little easier to line up if you just make sure you hold a good standing postural position. So we do it on the other side here. Not quite as good on this side. But yeah, nice simple exercise, and it's really good exercise for your core. Again, much better than doing it. You can do this lying down on the floor, but it's much better standing up. Much more functional that way. Okay, and then what did we finish with here? So we're going to do another lateral exercise here. So as I'm bending over like this, I'm reaching over, and then I breathe a deep breath there. So as I reach over, deep breath through the rib cage, and then I want to use that kind of eccentric load again, that stretch kind of in the rib cage area to power me to the other side. You may have seen, if you watch some of the other videos, the intermediate version of this is a much stronger step across, which is kind of a bounding across. You may also note that as I come down there, I stick my toe in the air. So I'll point that out on this side. So reaching over, bring the feet together and one out. And then you can see if I do it properly, toe sticks in the air there on the left foot. And as that sticks in the air, that should stretch my hamstrings, glutes and inner thigh muscles. And that also helps me to propel myself across to the other side. So I'm constantly eccentrically loading in different areas while I'm doing these exercises.